I've been growing out my hair just for kicks, you know? But I don't know anything about hair care, so it's just a little, is this a YouTube ready look? Let's go with that. I've been trying to think of a video idea or like an idea for a whole series of videos that could really focus on something positive. You know, I tend to critique stuff. I tend to have negative comments regarding various trends in entertainment and media creation and all that stuff. But I could use some positivity right now. Let's do something a bit more positive. Basically, I want to talk about some of my favorite episodes of my favorite shows. Most of them from animated shows. So for each one, I just want to pick one single favorite, talk about why I like it so much, kind of make an argument for its significance, both to me personally and also to the show as a whole. And I'll just do that as many times as I can. And if you have specific suggestions for shows that I should cover, well, I mean, it has to be something that I've watched, so I guess we'll find out when we talk about it. Feel free to let me know what your suggestions are. You can leave a comment and maybe I'll see it, or you can catch me on one of the live streams, which I think I'm going to go back to doing on a weekly basis, Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific time. So that's another place where you can catch me and tell me what to make. First up, to kick things off, why not go with a fan favorite, easy show to talk about every day of the week, Adventure Time. I am going to be talking about my very favorite episode of Adventure Time. But yeah, that's what we're doing. If that sounds fun, feel free to stick around. And yeah, if you would like to try to guess what my favorite episode of Adventure Time is, go ahead and do that now. I'll give you a little bit of time. It's windy today. It's Puhoy. So I assume that this is a pretty well-liked episode. I don't really know for sure because I'm not super involved in the Adventure Time fandom, but I do remember that it was pretty popular back when it first released, and that is when I watched it originally. So by about season 4 of Adventure Time, I was caught up. I wasn't really watching it from season 1. Found out how fantastic it was, and I caught up from there. From season 4 onward, I was watching the new episodes, not through cable. I didn't have cable. But I was just waiting for them to be uploaded to my favorite streaming site. I get both hands in? Streaming site. So just a real quick summary of the episode for anyone who doesn't know it or doesn't quite remember. Finn the human is feeling anxious because Flame Princess hasn't texted him back. Jake tries to get him to calm down. It doesn't really work. So Finn crawls into this giant pillow fort that they happen to have. And inside of it, he finds an alternate pillow dimension. And for the rest of the episode, Finn lives out basically a full lifetime in the pillow world. And meanwhile, Jake and BMO just kind of kill time back in the treehouse where nothing's really happening. I definitely agree with a lot of other people that this episode is an homage to a very famous episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, an episode called The Inner Light. If you've watched that series, then you definitely know that one. It's a similar story in TNG. Basically, Captain Picard, he gets zapped in the brain, and internally, just inside of his mind, he lives out like a whole separate lifetime on a planet that has actually been dead for centuries. By the end of it, he returns to the real world, feeling like he's been away for 50 years, but in reality, it's just been a few minutes. But we can't get to all the heavy implications of this stuff too soon, so, let's just start out with the surface level qualities of the episode. So visually and conceptually, Puhoy it's so appealing. The world of Adventure Time as a whole offers so many creative opportunities, and in this episode, we get tons of fun ideas, many of which never carry over into other episodes. For example, the reason that they're staying inside all day is because it's raining knives. We've never seen a knife rain before this point, as far as I know, and I don't think we ever see it again. But in universe, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense for the land of Ooh, and it also makes for a believable explanation, because Finn and Jake, they wouldn't just stay indoors because of regular rain. I don't think that would bother them too much. But with knife rain, yeah, you'd probably want to stay inside for that. Then, of course, we have the Pillow Realm itself. I guess it's referred to in the wiki as Pillow World. Whatever, that works just fine. And as you might expect, it's a world where everything's made of pillows. It's not some intricate or complex fantasy concept at all. It's just simple, it's creative, and it's fun, just like most of the show's world building. And based on that simple concept, the team came up with some really fantastic ideas. The Pillow People, they have punny names like Rosalinin and Quilton. The Pillow People eat tiny pillows, apparently, and somehow they look tasty to me, even though they definitely would not be. It's fabric. Eating fabric is not. It's not fun. Maybe they remind me of the gummy gloves from the Rock Bottom episode of SpongeBob, the little tiny gloves that they eat in that one. I also just love the look of Pillow World. The team has every excuse here to make it really colorful and soft. And of course, the premise of the episode itself is interesting. It's not entirely original. Obviously, we already talked about the Star Trek episode, but there are other instances as well where there's this concept of time passing at a different rate in a fantasy realm compared to the real world. I mean, the obvious example, I guess, is Narnia. And this premise also gives the fans an opportunity to see this weird alternate, like, adult version of Finn, as well as an old man version of Finn, or like Pillow Finn. That's definitely fuel for the fan art people. I am certain there is fan art of Pillow Finn doing all kinds of stuff. But that's just the surface level stuff. The episode goes much deeper than all that, because there's a lot of meat on this bone. It's definitely not every episode of Adventure Time that has a really clear message. There are lots of episodes that are just fun, especially early on. It's possible to assign those episodes meaning, but there probably was not any grand intention behind those episodes, like behind the scenes. But Puhoy is a very different story. For one thing, the characters just straight up tell us what this one is about. Finn's getting that old anxiety, which Jake describes as imaginary problems and fixating on those problems. Jake also has one of my favorite bits of the whole show when he talks about his favorite cup.
You see this cup? This is literally my favorite cup. Now it's gone forever, so it's not real, and I don't care about it anymore.
I find that image really useful in my own life. In fact, I remember this time back in college. I guess it was around college. I was living with some friends in this apartment, and we decided at some point to go in on this little 50cc scooter. It was one of the Chinese knockoff bikes. It kind of looked like a Honda Ruckus, but it was cheap and awful. We definitely paid too much for it, and it was falling apart almost by the day, but it was a really good time. You didn't need a motorcycle license to drive it, and it didn't really go fast enough that it would get you into trouble if you dropped it or ran into something. So long story short, it got stolen. It got stolen one night. Whoever it was, they cut right through the lock and they just took it away. They just picked the thing up and carried it off. And I wasn't too happy about it. I was kind of upset. And I mean, we'd only had the thing for like a few months, and it was just gone. Not a great situation. But after the fact, I kept thinking of Jake and his favorite cup, because I had the option. Like, if I wanted to, I could have just sat around, for the next 3 weeks and felt bad for myself and just think about the person who stole it and get really mad about it. But the fact was, the bike was gone. The cops were not going to go looking for it. I wasn't going to go looking all over the city for it, like some kind of Taken situation. It was just gone, and I didn't need to think about it anymore. And this central theme is represented really well through Finn's journey in this episode. The Pillow Fort itself is escapist inherently. It's soft, it's comforting, and it's really just a world of its own. During his time in Pillow World, Finn's experience is also defined by action, whereas back in the treehouse where he was just spinning out, he was stuck inside with nothing to do. Well, nothing to do except for thinking about those imaginary problems. So in one sense, the Pillow World demonstrates an unhealthy response to anxiety, namely festering, as they referred to it in the episode, just thinking about the problem on repeat without actually doing anything about it. But in another sense, it represents a healthy response, which is to do other things. It's leaving those imaginary problems behind. And by the time that Finn returns to the real world, that imaginary problem has basically just solved itself. I think that this episode demonstrates possibly the best possible approach to conveying positive messaging in a work of entertainment. So the messaging, or at least the topic itself, is discussed in plain English. They're not trying to hide that. And then the story goes on to substantiate that messaging in a way that is both clear and subtle. Puhoy does not feel like an awkward PSA on the topic of anxiety. It just feels like an engaging story. And in fact, the story is so engaging and creative and fun that I think it's perfectly possible to watch the episode without even being aware of what it's trying to say. Meanwhile, someone who goes and looks for that messaging is rewarded with a surprising amount of depth. And just speaking for myself, that messaging is all the more effective in my memory because the episode is memorable. This is the only episode of Adventure Time with the Pillow World. It's the only one with Knife Rain, and these things set it apart in my brain from other episodes of the show. To me, Puhoy really sums up the value of latter-day Adventure Time. The team by this point knew that it had this massive international audience, and along with a change of leadership behind the scenes, the show also changed its approach to content and messaging. And it did this without losing the intense creativity that made it a hit in the first place. So is this objectively the best episode in the series? No, I don't think so. But especially on rewatch, it is such a beautifully compact reminder of why Adventure Time isn't just a good show, but a bona fide classic. The cat was crinkling a bag. I don't know what that's about. Just ignore that. So with that, I'll wrap this up. Thank you so much for sticking around until the end. It means a lot for a small channel like this one. Take care, get some sleep, and thanks for stopping by.